Alright guys, so we've been talking about claims lately, so I want to get you guys started on counterclaims. Alright, so counterclaims are the opposing viewpoint. You really need to know what your opponent is thinking about in order to build a stronger argument. Alright, as far as counterclaims go, you're not actually going to see the counterclaim in, your essay, but you are going to see elements of that. And those elements are usually in your concession, right? Concession statements are used to acknowledge your opponent's points. So for example, over here we see a concession statement right here. Although ice cream may be delicious, the true king of desserts is the cheesecake, right? So you're seeing how I'm acknowledging my opponent by saying that yes, ice cream is delicious. But then I take it a step further and say how the the better dessert is cheesecake. Does that make sense, you guys? So the reason why we use concession statements is it helps you build your credibility, right? It helps you show that you're objective, that you can see both sides of the argument, right? Because it sounds much better when you, say that, okay, cats are great, but dogs are better, right? It sounds better than saying that, hey, dogs are the best because I said so, right? So make sure to understand your counterclaim and start thinking about ways that you can create concessions, right? So for today, we're going to start looking at concessions in paragraphs 10, 11, 12, and 13. They might be hard to find at first, so I'm going to give you a hint. Concession statements usually start with words like although or but, and they might contain the words may or might, right? For example, although cats may run faster than dogs, dogs can run for longer. Does that make sense? So remember, concession statements are meant to acknowledge the counterclaim, not support it. You're setting up these concession statements so that you can knock them down, all right? Once again, they're just there to show you that your opponent does have a point, but your point is stronger, and therefore your audience should go with you, right? So when you're done with this part of the video, I guess, I want you guys to start looking at the concession statements in paragraph 10, all right? I want you to start thinking what concessions is he making, right? And then when you're done with that, continue on to paragraphs 11 to 13, all right? After you find the concession statements here, I want you to start thinking about what is the counterclaim in this paper. All right, start thinking about that. And then when you're done, write that on the side in the notes section of your book. Okay? When you're done with that, I want you guys to start considering what your counterclaim might be. I want you to start predicting what your counterclaim will be. So I want you guys to start thinking about who is going to be the counterclaim guy, right? The counterclaim guy is going to think about your opponent's argument and find ways to show how invalid their argument is, okay? So when you're done with that, the best way to show how invalid your counterclaim is to refute it. So if you guys are familiar with debates and stuff, a refutation is basically saying that, your opponent's argument is not valid, right? And as far as refutations go, you really need to think about what would be stronger, right? Taking down a really easy, like pot shot kind of point, or if it would be stronger to show your opponent's strongest point and then take it down, right? So you definitely want to use the strongest point that you think you can argue against, right? Because remember, refuting your opponent's argument shows that your point is more valid, right? And when you do this, like I said, you really need to show how you really need to attack their strongest arguments. Because if your strongest arguments can beat their strongest arguments, then that means your argument is better, right? I'm not sure if you'll finish this up, but these are the directions for later, okay? If you finish this, look at these, look for the refutation, and